We have some breaking news to go over today. As the Toronto Blue Jays have just made multiple surprising moves and ahead of what's going to be a very exciting ALCS series. The Jays have made multiple moves as the official roster for the ALCS has been announced. And folks, there are a lot of changes, and it is much different than the ALDS roster. So stay tuned for that in this episode, as well as multiple other updates, reports, some comments from John Schneider ahead of tonight's game. You'll want to stay tuned till the end of the video. A ton to go over, but before we get into it all, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, quick reminder, hit that subscribe button. About 70% of you who are watching right now aren't subscribed. We're on the road and getting close to 20,000 subscribers. So if you're excited for the Jays series, make sure to hit that subscribe button, folks. A lot to go over today. And obviously the Jays roster was just announced minutes ago. And I promised you guys I would have a video for you all on it. Here it is. And let's dive right into it because we have a lot to go over today. Now, obviously, there is some things here. Now, let's start with Bichette. Hazel May came out with a report about 30 minutes ago before the official roster was announcing that, Bichette was going to miss the, of course, the ALCS roster and won't be there for the entirety of the ALCS. And again, Bichette is not going to be there because of his, according to Shai Davidi, his discomfort during his attempt running the bases yesterday. Position player group remains the same. That's something I want to kind of go over here. Now, I'll dive into some of the pitching staff because that's where the biggest changes were made. But if you missed my video yesterday, Bo tried to run the bases. Feel free to check that one out after this one if you haven't already. Tried to run the bases. There's some footage of it. He tweaked his knee or retweaked his PCL strain, it seemed, when he was actually stepping on second base. He went down in discomfort. There was no way he was going to be able to play. Now, a lot of people wanted Bo to just be on there because, 50% Bo is better than 100% IKF. Fair enough. But Bo has a contract, right? Like, he's in the sense of he's about to enter free agency. He does not want to re-aggravate it anymore. So the infielders remain the same: Barger, Clement, Jimenez, Guerrero, IKF. And of course, the outfielders, you got Nathan Lucas, you got the guys. I have full faith in this team, right? And you're going up against pure righties. So having all these lefties is good. But where the changes are made is, of course, in the sense of the pitching. Now, you can see this here. Max Scherzer and Chris Bassitt replaced Tommy Nance and Justin Bruihl. Now, if you watched my video yesterday, this is the exact thing I predicted. Not to pump my own tires here, doesn't really matter, but I did predict that. And I've been saying that for the past really week, ever since the Jays moved on to the ALCS. Now, I was hoping they were going to replace Bo for IKF. That would have been the easiest move, but they now have both Bassitt and Scherzer on the roster in exchange for, again, Justin Bruihl and Tommy Nance. So there's a few reasons for this here. And the biggest reason, of course, is because of the fact that, A, they only had Justin Bruihl on there because the Yankees had an abundance of lefties, and against their righty starters, they could have, you could have put in Justin Bruihl for the patch of lefties, all these different things. There's not as many of those on the Mariners, right? There just isn't as many lefty hitters, which obviously allows you to use longer relief guys. Now, Tommy Nance, he had a fantastic season, a sub-2 ERA, I think, to finish the year, 1.99. However, they want to have someone who's available for multiple innings, which both Chris Bassitt and Max Scherzer are. But this also gives them the option to start probably Chris Bassitt in Game 4. Unfortunately, it's on the road, but in Game 4, and get kind of unique with their, obviously use of these guys. So you can see here from Joshua, Scherzer in Game 4. And the utilization will be interesting. But Bassitt out of the pen is my guess at the current plan. Those circumstances can necessitate a very different approach by the time Game 4 rolls around. So in a perfect world, let's say the Jays are up in the series 2-1 by Game 4. They use their starters in order: Gausman, Yasavage, Bieber, right? We assume that's going to be the case. Bieber will be used on the road. And then let's say you lose one of the games, similar to the Yankee series. And in the Yankee series, you, of course, had a bullpen game in Game 4. They're probably going to lean towards starting Max Scherzer. And of course, if you haven't been keeping up to date with it, Scherzer has not been injured. He's been pitching a ton of pitches, last through 95 pitches, which essentially means that he's going to be good to go for as many pitches as they need him. Whereas, Bassitt, who's coming off of an injury, he's going to be available for maybe 3 or 4 innings, which would obviously, then you kind of prefer Bassitt out of the pen. Something else to keep in mind. Let's say, hypothetically, they do start Max Scherzer in a Game 4. He has to have a really short leash, which means a Bassitt out of the pen could be interesting right away, right? So they're basically taking 2 of the pitchers that can pitch multiple innings, Bassitt and Bieber, to A, provide them some length, but B, something that goes underrated here, if they're blowing out a team or vice versa, they now have someone who, alongside Eric Lauer, can go multiple innings and kind of save some of that bullpen, which is something that they didn't have in the Yankee series. There was some blowouts in the Yankee series. They had to use, we think back to Game 2, when they blew out the Yankees, but they had to use a couple of their, somewhat decent relievers like Braden Fisher and things like that, because Brule gave up a ton of runs. Nance did okay, but a lot of guys gave up a ton of runs, and that's where this becomes very solid. So I'm very happy with these moves. It makes total sense to me. They didn't do anything. I'm a little bit, the reason I say surprising moves, of course, Bichette being left off, not a surprise after yesterday's update, but a little bit of a surprise in general. The biggest surprise for me is them actually going out and they took both of the pitchers, and this is where things become interesting. Because a lot of people didn't want Max Scherzer on the roster, right? They did not want him there, and that's where the surprise comes for me. And now I said in my videos that I expected them to do it, and I figured they were going to do it, but the majority of people disagreed, or at least a lot of people online were saying you can't have Scherzer in here, all these different things. I tend to agree he's been really bad in the regular season towards the second half of it after the All-Star break, but he is, Max Scherzer at the end of the day, and clearly they value what he brings more than Tommy Nance, and maybe that's because they have more faith using Scherzer, in a high leverage situation, or maybe it's as simple as Scherzer's going to be starting Game 4, right? But pretty surprising to not have Tommy Nance on there instead of Max Scherzer, especially if you're bringing a starter. But again, it does make some sense for the length aspect of it. And, they do have length. They have a ton of it right now. I mean, you have Bassett. You have, of course, your starters. You have Braden Fisher can go a couple innings. Mason Flaherty can go a couple innings. Eric Lauer can go multiple innings. They should not be worn down in the arm department, which is the opposite of what the Mariners are feeling. Now, at the time of recording, the Mariners lineup is not out. We do know, or the roster rather is not out. We do know that Bryce Miller is going to be pitching today. What we also know is, they're going to have Brian Wu available on the roster, but probably not till Game 5. So if you can take care of business, get up to a 3-1 lead, let's say, for Game 5, I have full faith in the Jays being able to take care of Brian Wu. He also hasn't pitched in a while. He is their ace, I guess, quote unquote, but the Jays are in good shape. And this was an interesting tweet from John Morosi yesterday night. In assessing ALCS roster options, the Jays are certainly weighing that there's a diminished need for right-handed platoon bats, given that the Mariners have 0 left-handed starters and only 1 frequently used left-handed reliever in Gabe Spire. So this is something else to keep in mind. They kept Ty France off of it as well. I thought maybe they'd go with Ty France if Bo's not available instead of IKF. They clearly value IKF's versatility. The way John Schneider deploys his pinch hitters or defensive replacements, whether that's Miles, Straw, all these different guys, it is what it is, right? No Ty France, and there's less of a need for Ty France. The Mariners have mostly righties, right? Just all across the board. We'll see a lefty probably once a game max, right? And maybe. That allows them to use a bunch of lefties, use Addison Berger, use Dalton Varsho, use Nathan Lucas. Like, Lucas is going to start every game in the 2-hole. You have Berger probably in the cleanup spot. You have Varsho down there in the 6-hole, whatever, actual area they want to go about it. This also allows Andres Jimenez, who is better against righties here, not great either way, he's going to be playing every day at short. So it all worked out. A couple surprising ones, though. Scherzer, I'm a little bit surprised they actually went there. Unfortunate Bichette's left off the list. But let me know down below what your thoughts are on all this, folks. Some pretty crazy times right now. I'll keep you up to date every step of the way, and hopefully Jays take care of business tonight.